I never expected my life to change that summer when my parents told me I'd be spending 3 months at Uncle Robert's vineyard in Northern California. I was seneschal frustrado at 23, fresh out of college. I had planned to start job hunting in Boston instead. I found myself driving down a dusty road toward the sprawling estate where my cousin Nathan lived. Nathan and I hadn't seen each other in nearly 7 years, not since that awkward Christmas when we were teenagers. Back then, he was the lanky, quiet kid who preferred books to conversations. I remembered how he was said to hide behind his thick-rimmed glasses, his nose always buried in some classic novel. The gravel crunched under my Teresa's. I pulled up to the Victorian-style house. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the porch where a figure stood waiting. It took me a moment to realize it was Nathan. Gone was the thick teenager. In his place stood a confident young man with broad shoulders and sun-kissed skin. His dark hair was shorter now, styled in a way that accentuated his sharp jawline. Those thick-rimmed glasses were replaced by subtle contacts revealing striking green eyes I'd never properly noticed before. "Alex," he called out, descending the stairs with an easy grace. "It's been too long." He stepped out of my car, suddenly aware of my wrinkled t-shirt and travel wear appearance. "Nathan, you look different." He let a rich sound that seemed to ripple through the warm air. 7 years will do that. Come on, I'll show you toy room." The house was exactly as I remembered it. High ceilings, hardwood floors, and the perpetual scent of oak and aged wine. What I didn't remember wasteway. Nathan's presence seemed to fill every space he occupied. As he led me upstairs, I found myself studying the confident set of his shoulders, the way his white linen shirt draped perfectly across his back. "Uncle Robert's at a wine convention in Napa," Nathan explained as we reached the guest room. "He'll be back next week until then. It's just us and Maria, our housekeeper." The guest room was spacious with large windows overlooking the vineyard. Rows of grapevines stretched toward the horizon, their leaves shimmering in the late afternoon light. "This is beautiful," I murmured. "Wait until you'll see the sunset." Nathan said, "Lead the doorframe. We usually watch it from the back terrace. Join me for dinner there. Maria's making her famous PA." I nodded, trying to ignore the strange flutter in my stomach. He smiled. This was Nathan, my cousin's kid, who once accidentally set fire to the Christmas tree while trying to improve the lights. But there was nothing childlike about him now. Dinner was served on the terrace, just as the sun began its descent. Maria's pilot was indeed exceptional, but I found myself more captivated by Nathan's stories about the vineyard, his work as a wine educator, and his plans to expand Thibausinus. He spoke with passion, his hands gesturing animatedly, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. "What about you?" he asked, pouring us each another glass of their state-grown Cabernet. "Still planning to conquer Wall Street?" I grimed. "That waste plan now. I'm not so sure for yourself. Business school, and I feel more lost than ever." "Maybe that's why you're here," Nathan gestured softly. "Sometimes we need to get lost too." Find ourselves. Next few weeks fell into an easy rhythm. Each morning I'd wake to find Nathan already in the kitchen, brewing coffee and planning the day's tasks. He took it upon himself to teach me about vineyard operations, though I suspected more about keeping me company than any real need for him to keep his understanding. "The relationship between the vine and the soil," he explained one morning as we walked between the roast early sun cast a golden glow across the landscape, and dew still clung to Thalavis. "Everything's connected." I watched us. He gently lifted a cluster of gracious fingers, moving with practiced care like people. He added, glancing at me with an intensity that made my breath catch, "Working in the vineyard was physical denting, but oddly peaceful. Nathan taught me how to check the grapes for ripeness, how to prune the vines, and the intricate process of winemaking." His knowledge seemed endless, and his passion was contagious. Sometimes I'd catch myself staring at him as he worked, admiring the way his muscles moved under his shirt, though his face lit up when he talked about things. Hell of it. Uncle Robert returned from his convention, but he was often busy with business matters, leaving Nathan and me to our endeavors in the evenings. We'd sit on the terrace sharing wine and conversation stretched late into the night. It was during one of these evenings that something shifted between us. "Remember that summer when we were kids?" Nathan asked, swirling the wine in his glass. "When we tried to build a treehouse and ended up with matching broken arms?" He laughed at the memory. "Your dad was furious, but neither of us would rat out the other about whose idea it was. We were always protecting each other." He said softly, the way he looked at me then made my heart race. There was something in his eyes, something unspoken but powerful. Nathan, I started, but he stood up abruptly. Come with me. I want to show you something. He led me through the moonlit vineyard to a small hill overlooking Thais. A blanket was already spread on the ground, as if he'd planned this. I come here sometimes to think, he explained. As we sat down, the night was warm and the sky was alive with stars. It helps clear my head. What do you think about? I asked, aware of how close we were sitting. He was quiet for a long moment. Lately, things I probably shouldn't. My heart was pounding so hard. I was sure heckled hear it. Like what? Instead of answering, he turned to face me. The moonlight carved shadows across his face, making him look almost otherworldly. Alex, he whispered, and then his hand was on my cheek, his thumb tracing my jawline. I knew I should pull away. This was wrong on so many levels, but when his lips met mine, all rational thought apart. The kiss was gentle at first, hesitant, but quickly grew deeper, more desperate. His fingers tangled in my hair as I pulled him closer. Years often acknowledged feelings rushing to the surface. When we finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, reality came crashing back. We can't, I said, even as my body ached to kiss him again. You're my cousin Ichno, he replied, his forehead resting against mine. But I've been falling for you since you arrived, maybe even before that. What do we do? I don't know, he added, but I can't pretend I don't feel this. We stayed on that hillside for hours, talking, kissing, struggling with complexity of our situation. When the dawn began to break, we walked back to the house in silence, our hands brushing occasionally, each touch sending electricity through my body. The next few days were torture. We tried to maintain himly around Uncle Robert and Mariah, but every glance, every accidental touch was charged with meaning. During the day we worked side by side in the vineyard, professional and distant, but at night meet secretly in the garden or on the hillside, unable to resist the pull between us. One afternoon, about a week after our first kiss, Uncle Robert announced he needed to attend Antitho wine convention, this time in Oregon. It'll be a 2-week trip, he told us over lunch. Nathan, can you handle things here? Nathan nodded, his face perfectly composed under the table, his knee pressed against line, sending a jolt through my body. Of course, Dad, Alex, and I have got it covered. The moment Uncle Robert's car disappeared down the driveway, Nathan grabbed my hand and pulled me inside. We barely made it to his room before his lips crashed into me, and all the pent-up desire from the past week exploding between us. His kisses were hungry, desperate, and he matched his intensity, pushing him against the wall. I've been going crazy, breathed against my neck, watching you all week, not being able to touch you. Ichno, I gasped as his hand slipped under my shirt. God, I know that night was the first time we made love. It was passionate, tender and terrifying all at once. Afterward, as we lay tangled in his heats, the gravity of what we done settled over us. Are we awful people? He whispered into the darkness. Nathan propped himself up on an elbow, looking down at me. Do you regret it? No, I answered. Honestly, that's what scares me. He traced my collarbone with his finger. I've been doing research in most statistics, and relationships aren't actually illegal. It's just socially unacceptably finished for him. Our family would never understand. Maybe we don't need them to understand. He pulled me closer. Maybe we just need to understand ourselves. The next 2 weeks were like living in a dream without Uncle Robert around. We could be ourselves. We worked in the vineyard during the day, between the rows of mines. In the evenings, we'd cook together, dance in the kitchen to old records, and make love anywhere we felt like it. Maria, bless her heart, pretended not to notice the change in our relationship, though I caught her giving us knowing looks sometimes on evening. As we sat in the library, Nathan reading while I lay with my head in his lap, he suddenly said, I'm thinking of opening a second vineyard. I looked up at him. Where? Oregon. There's this perfect property near Willamette Valley. The climate for Pinot Noir. His fingers absently stroked my hair. It would need someone to manage it. My heart skipped. Are you asking? What? I think you're asking. Come with me, he said softly. We could start fresh there, where nobody knows us. Edron, this vineyard you'd run, that one we'd be business partners on paper, and do everything else behind closed doors. Theophor was tempting a way to be together, to build something of our own, but the practical part of my brain kicked in. What about Uncle Robert, the family Dad's been talking about expanding anyway? I'll convince him. It's a sound business. Sure. He set his book aside. As fourth family, we'll figure it out. We don't have to tell them everything. I sat up, turning to face him. You're serious about this? I'm serious about us, he said, taking my hand. I know it's complicated and messy and probably crazy, But I love you, Alex, not as a cousin, not as a friend, but as the person I want to build a life with it. Was the first time either of us had said, love, and the word hung in the air between us. Instead of responding, I kissed him, trying to pour everything I couldn't say into Thatcus. The day Uncle Robert was due to return, Nathan and I sat on our hillside. The sunrise, we'd spent the night there, making love under the sand, talking about our future. Now reality was creeping back in with the morning light. I've been thinking about your Oren proposal, I said, playing with his fingers. It's risky, life's risky, he replied, but I've done it. Math, the property is undervalued. The current owner is retiring. With my expertise and your business background, we could make it work. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother asking about my job. The real world was intruding on a bubble. We need a plan, I said, showing him the message, a real one, not just dreams. Nathan sat up, suddenly businessical. Okay, let's make one first deal. Talk to Dad about expansion interests, my judgment on wine matter. You can start looking into thibbaciness, side permits, licenses, that sort of thing. And us, I asked quietly. Well, need a place to live in Oregon, somewhere private, but not so remote. It looks suspicious. We'll tell the family we're going into business together, which is a lie. They'll probably be thrilled. Or not going to Wall Street. Himadit sounds so simple, but we both knew it wouldn't be that evening when Uncle Robert returned. Nathan wasted no time presenting his expansion idea. I watched from the doorway as they discussed it, in study, my heart in my throat. To our surprise and relief, Uncle Robert wasn't enthusiastic. I've been wanting to tap into the Oregon market, he said, pulling out maps, but I needed someone I could trust to run it. Over the next few weeks, our double life became more complex. During the day, we were cousins and business partners, attending meetings, visiting the Oregon property, and making plans. At night, we were lovers, stealing moments together whenever we could. The strain of secrecy started to show. Sometimes I'd catch Nathan looking at me during family dinners with such longing it hurt. Other times we'd have to pretend we barely knew each other. When visiting realtors or bankers, maintaining a professional distance that felt like physicalpin. One night, after a particular difficult day of pretending, Nathan found me in the garden. I hate this, he said, pulling me into the shadows. I hate not being able to touch you when I want to, or tell people how I feel about you. Him, tight breathing in his familiar accent. I know, but what choice do we have? Hyvie pulled back his eyes, serious. We cuddle them, not everything, but enough that we're together, that it's serious. They'd never accept it, he whispered. Maybe not at first, but they're our family, they love us, and if they didn't understand, if they try to stop us, then we leave anyway, he said, firmly. We're both adults, we can make our own choices. The next morning, I found a real estate listing in my email. It was a beautiful house on the outskirts of Minville, Oregon, close to where our new yard would be. The property was surrounded by trees, offering privacy without isolation. There was even a small guest house that could serve as a home office. What do you think? Nathan asked up behind me as I looked at the photos. It's perfect, I said, but can we afford it? He smiled. With the investor money Dad's putting into the expense, what we both have saved. Yes, I already called the agent. Things moved quickly after that. Within a month we had the Oregon property under contract, both for the vineyard and the house. Uncle Robert was thrilled with our initial developing. Everyone how proud he was that we're carrying on the familiar business. The day we closed on both properties, Nathan and I decided at waste time. We invited the immediate family, my parents, Uncle Robert, and Nathan's younger sister Emma, to dinner at the vineyard. Maria outdid herself preparing a feast. Perhaps sensing the gravity of the evening during dinner, Nathan guided the conversation toward our plans for Oregon. Everyone was in high spirits, celebrating our new business venture with plenty of wine. As it was served, Nathan caught my eye and gave a subtle nod. There's some things we need to tell you, said, his voice steady, despite the slight tremor in his hands. About us. The table fell quiet. Uncle Robert looked up from his tiramisu fork, paused midway to his mouth. My mother's eyes darted between us. Asmel frowned, forming Alex and I. Nathan, we're not just business partners, we're together. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear Thekrakut chirping outside, the soft ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. My father was the first to speak. Together, he repeated, his voice carefully neutral, as in we're in love, I said, finding my courage under the table. Nathan's hand found mine. We know it's unexpected and complicated, but it's real. Reactions were exactly as we'd feared. My mother burst into tears. Uncle Robert's face turned alarming. Should I have read? And Emma just sat there, mouth open in shock. What followed was a blur of shouting, crying, and accusations. "This is wrong." "Uncle Robert," thundered Yorkersons. "For God's sake, it's not wrong," Ethan said firmly. "We're both consenting. We've thought this through carefully. Is this why you wanted to open Oregon Vineyard? My father, Dimondito, run away together?" "No," I answered. "Thebasinus, opportunity is real. A relationship. It developed separately. We didn't plan this." "How long has this been going on?" my mother asked through her tears. "Nathan and I exchanged glances since this summer," he said, "but all feelings have been there longer." Emma, who had been quiet until then, suddenly spoke up. "Actually, it makes sense." To stare at her, what they've always had this weird connection. How they used to finish each other's sentences when we were kids. Her simple observations somehow deflated some of the tension. Uncle Robert slumped in his chair, looking tired rather than angry. "What exactly are you planning to do? Moving to Oregon?" I said. "We'll run the new vineyard together. We've already bought a house. You can't stop us." Nathan added gently, "We're telling you because you are our family, and we love you. We hope that eventually you can accept us." The next hour was filled with more questions, tears, and attempts to talk use out of it. But as the night wore on, the initial shock began to fade. My mother, though still upset, hugged me before they left. Uncle Robert pulled Nathan aside for a long private conversation. Emma, bless her, actually seemed excited about this whole thing. 2 months later, we moved into our new home in Oregon. The transition wasn't easy. Some family members still wouldn't speak to us, and others only communicated through formal emails, but we had each other, and gradually things began to improve. 1 year after our announcement, we hosted our first wine tasting at the new vineyard. To our surprise, most of the family came. The event was a success, with our first vintage receiving excellent reviews. More importantly, seeing us happy and successful together seemed to help poor families. Except our relationship now, as I write this from a terrace overlooking the Willamette Valley Vineyards. Nathan is in the set. On our latest blend, we've built a life here, not just a business but a home. It hasn't been easy, and we still face challenges. Some people will never understand or accept us, and we've learned to be okay with that. What matters is that we found each other, had the courage to be honest about our feelings, and fought for our love. Our story might not be conventional, but it's ours, and we wouldn't change it for anything. Nathan's calling me now, something about a new Pinot Noir he wants me to taste. As I get up to join him, I can't help but smile. Sometimes the most beautiful things in life come from unexpected places, and love in all its forms finds a way to bloom even in the most unlikely